Is edging bad for semen retention? In this video, we're going to be comparing two schools of thought for semen retention. We're comparing monk mode with sexual kung fu, comparing abstinence versus the use of edging. My goal with this video is to help you to understand clear definitions of these practices, along with the benefits, who these are for, and what some of the downsides are that you want to avoid. And guys, in one of my recent videos in the comment section, so many of you were saying that edging is bad. You should never do edging. Well, I want you to keep your mind open with this because edging is actually a powerful tool. There are times to use this, and I want you to understand how to do this effectively and the right time to do this. So with that said, let's first begin with getting a clear definition on exactly what monk mode is. Now, monk mode is a practice of semen retention where you're completely focused on abstaining and retaining your seed. You're not engaging in any sexual activity. Instead, you're completely focused on your personal growth, spiritual development. You may be focused on your career or any creative endeavors. You essentially have the blinders on and there's zero amounts of temptation that you're exposing yourself to because you're focused just like a monk would be. Now we can contrast that against sexual kung fu, where sexual kung fu is engaging and practicing in controlled sexual activity. This is essentially edging, where you're cultivating this sexual energy and then transmuting that into different creative endeavors, into your life, business, relationships, whatever that may be. So we can see between these two practices of semen retention, we have monk mode that is complete abstinence, and then we have the practice of sexual kung fu where you're engaging in sexual activities, edging, but not actually going over the edge into climax. This can help you to unlock the ability to have multiple orgasms as a man. We'll talk about that later. So if we compare these two aspects, there's certain times when you want to be tapped into monk mode, and there's other times where you might want to be using sexual kung fu. Let's consider the case of a man named Mike. Mike, he's a single man, really focused on his career, building himself up, cultivating spiritual development, and he's really focused on himself at this time. He has less responsibilities, he doesn't have any relationships, he has less attachments, and therefore, for Mike, he may benefit more from being fully focused on monk mode because he can really dedicate his time, his effort, and his energy onto building himself up. He's retaining his seed, and he can then take that energy and put it fully into his creative endeavors. He has less distractions, less responsibilities, and therefore he can really go deeper into his projects himself and his development. Where we can contrast that with, say, a man named John, he's in a relationship, he's married, has a family. Sure, he's still focused on building himself up, his career, his goals, his development, but he has a romantic relationship, he has a partner, and therefore, if he goes fully into monk mode, this may damage his relationship. This may inhibit the ability for him to have a deep connection with his partner. And therefore, John, it would more so behoove him to tap into the power of edging, of sexual kung fu, where he can engage in sexual performance, sexual activities, cultivate this energy, and then before he goes over the edge into climax, he can then transmute and redirect that energy into his creative endeavors and his development. He's still engaging in sexual activity, but he's using that and then transmuting that. The key benefits here are that John, he gets to tap into cultivating this energy. He has enhanced sexual performance, physical health, and vitality. He's going to have a deeper connection with his partner as well. Where if we compare that to monk mode Mike over here, well, monk mode Mike, he's more so focused on himself, his growth, and his development. He may be more at risk of having social isolation. He may be at risk of not having that physical or emotional connection with a partner. But Mike, his ability to be laser-like focused on himself, his endeavors, and his creativity. He can really focus on this ability to get himself ahead without having to take away from distractions or put this into any dating, sexual activities, or anything else. So completely different scenarios where you have a single man, Mike, focused on himself, his growth, and then you have John, who is a married man, family, relationship, and he wants to cultivate a deeper relationship with his wife. So you can see here, these are different situations, and there's certain phases of life where you may be more in a phase of being in monk mode. And I've gone through both of these phases where in monk mode, you can be ruthlessly focused and prioritize your time on yourself. There's other times where you may want to have a relationship and you want to cultivate a deep connection with a partner. And this is a way that you can also be on semen retention while deepening your relationship, tapping into the ability to have multiple orgasms. This is a video I'm going to be talking about in the future here of how you can have multiple orgasms as a man, talking about some of the content from Montauk Chia. A big part of this is using different tactics, different techniques to retain your seed, to practice short-term and long-term semen retention techniques. And I talk about that in this video that I did here a couple weeks ago, where I talk about short and long-term techniques, such as breathing into your balls to help circulate this energy. Using some of the short and the long-term practices helps you to have a relationship, be married, and also be on semen retention. Now, there are downsides to both of these practices of semen retention. First, we'll look at sexual kung fu. We can see some of the downsides are risk of fatigue. And yes, if you're engaging in sexual activities of edging, there is always the risk that you're going to go over the edge. And if you do go over the edge into climax, you're going to release this whole cascade of hormones, of prolactin, of all these factors that are going to put you into this refractory period. This is going to make you feel fatigued, foggy brained, and low energy. So that is a risk of engaging in sexual activities, is you could possibly go over the edge if you're not using these techniques. You could go over that point of no return. If you're using breathing into your balls, you're using techniques of breathing, this golden white light, which you can find in my guided meditation for breathing into your balls. This is going to help you to circulate this energy. This is going to help you to prevent yourself from going over the edge. So use that technique. That's one of the most powerful ways that you can stave off going over the edge of ejaculation, is using the ability to breathe. And there's multiple different breathing techniques that you can use, but using that technique to circulate the energy, that's key here. Because one of the other downsides of using sexual kung fu is if you're doing this the wrong way, if you're not circulating this energy, this is where you're going to end up with energy stagnation. And this energy gets locked in the pelvis, in the testicles. Many guys that have an overly tight pelvic floor, and just because it's tight doesn't mean that it's strong, but they have this tight pelvic floor, and instead of being able to circulate the energy through their body, because of that tight pelvic floor, it keeps that energy stagnant, it keeps it contained. It builds to the point where it has to go somewhere, and therefore it goes out and forward. And that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is to circulate that energy and then utilize that. This is how we can then transmute and circulate this energy. This is how we avoid going over the edge into ejaculation. And guys, even though you're engaging in sexual kung fu, and there are benefits to this, it can be time consuming. There is a point at which the returns diminish. There's a point of diminishing returns where the time you put in isn't really getting you much more of the benefit. So that is one of the downsides of engaging in sexual kung fu as well, is that this does take time. Yes, it's a positive thing. Can have multiple benefits to it, deepen your relationship, pleasure, and energy, but it is time consuming. Where the guy on monk mode over here, he has all this time that he can redirect into his creative abilities, into the projects that he's working on, and he can really fully use that time ruthlessly. But some of the downsides are he may end up with this lack of practice where he doesn't have the ability to perform in a sexual situation if that does arise. He's out of practice, therefore he may not have the stamina, he may not have the actual strength to maintain an erection, and he's going to be at a point where he's more at risk of premature ejaculation if he is in a situation. One of the other negative side effects of being on monk mode is the potential health risk of developing prostatitis. if you're not ejaculating, there are some literature papers out there that show that if you are not ejaculating at a regular frequency, that can result in retrograde ejaculation and some of the effects of, say, prostatitis, inflammation of the prostate, and other negative health effects as well. Other downsides, this can result in social isolation or feeling a lack of connection with others if you're constantly just ruthlessly focused on yourself, not having social engagements, even if it's platonic, friends, family. Well, this is going to result in more of a feeling of social isolation. And then finally, you have the risk of penile atrophy, where you're shrinking your little sausage, because if you're not getting frequent erections and if you're not getting blood flow to this muscle, to this area, a lot of the veins, a lot of the tissue, it's going to lose its elasticity. You're going to lose that ability to maintain an erection that is strong, girthy, that can maintain that force, that blood in there for an extended period of time. So if you're not using it, you will tend to lose it. And there's ways that you can be on these practices of semen retention and not end up with shrinking your penis. There's ways that you can be on retention and actually be able to have sexual relationships. There's ways that you can be on semen retention and that you can be able to cultivate this energy and still operate at a high level if you do this properly. It does take discipline, it takes awareness, and it takes an ability to understand that this is a skill that you're going to have to practice. This is a practice of semen retention. There's not an ultimate goal that you're getting to. It's an ongoing practice. This is going to help you to build this skill, build this tool, just like you can build a stronger pelvic floor. And this is something that I'm helping guys to do now, help you to build a stronger pelvic floor, build a bigger penis, and being able to build a body that can dominate the bedroom and look like a Greek god at the same time and have raging levels of testosterone. And speaking of testosterone, if you want to get my free testosterone optimization course, you can get that for free in the link in the description below, and you can learn how to work with me in my program Executive Gains.